Hi, welcome to the Modern Witches podcast. I'm excited to be talking to a community member and a friend, Alexander Friend of NIUKA Tea, who has been a part of our Witches Confluence gatherings since the beginning, bringing the tea lounge into our community spaces. And we're so grateful that NIUKA is one of our community sponsors this year. And it feels so lovely to be able to really weave in Alexander's story into our community. So thank you for coming on and chatting with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Casey. It's a pleasure and an honor to be a part of the Witches Confluence and greater community. It's something that warms my heart and makes me feel like I'm really, connected to my true path.
I love that. I'd love, and would you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yes. My name, Alexander Friend. Friend is not a taken name or a given. It's just my actual last name. Um, but I do feel it has influenced me um, because the things that I feel called to do are pretty friendly, like make tea for people and share intimate tea gatherings and give body work and um, and that sort of thing. That's kind of those are the things that really are my passions. Um, and so, a while back when I realized that the capitalist system wasn't going anywhere anytime soon and that I'd have to figure out how to survive in it, I said, well, if I've got to do it, I want to do it my way. And, doing the things I'm passionate about and things that I feel, will be positive contributors to the world rather than detractors. And so that's where I started NIUKA Tea, um, and also my body work. So I've kind of gone in and out of those over the years. Now I'm doing both together, and it feels really good. And
Um,
yeah, I live here in Oakland with my partner Alejandra, the Lioness Oracle, and we like to have tea ceremony, tea and toast with our cats every morning. And
I love it.
that's a major part of my reality.
Mm,
And
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, I love how you framed sort of choosing your relationship to capitalism. I feel like that's really powerful spell work.
yeah.
Um, and when did you start NIUKA Tea? When was that?
Um, I officially made it a business in 2015.
Okay.
But I really was starting, I was starting to do NIUKA tea things more like 2013, 14. I made my first herbal tea blend in 2014. And I was also doing a lot of tea lounge events. I would bring my tea lounge to events. That's what eventually became my nomadic tea lounge, I call it.
hmm
Just,
Love it.
yeah, wherever it's happening, I'll bring the cozy tea lounge to you. Yeah.
hmm And it is such a lush and cozy tea lounge you create.
Ah,
Um,
very good. Very good.
yes.
Hope so.
So when did you feel like you sort of forged your relationship with spirit? And this is a big question, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just always really curious about how people sort of come to see spirit or acknowledge spirit within them.
Yeah. Yes, I would say that, sort of to maybe the more personal, unofficial time was probably very, very early on. Just looking up at the stars as a little kid and just being wowed and awestruck
Mhm.
and being told what they were and just feeling just that massive depth within me and some connection between them. And so at that point, I knew there was something going on bigger than, WWF wrestling or whatever I was as a kid. Um, but and then also I grew up my family. I grew up in Wisconsin, and a lot of uh, people in Wisconsin go up north to a cabin in the summertime, and so I grew up going up north to the family cabin every summer, and it's in the Boundary Waters canoe area, which is like the border of Canada, Ontario, in the Lake Superior, and it's just pure wilderness with a very rare cabin or boater. And so that was another thing that just really like connected me to nature, and that was my real connection to spirit. But then later, when I was, I think, 20 years old, I got my first Reiki attunement. And that kind of really brought me into a knowing, embodied place of saying, okay, I can really do something with this.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's a powerful experience.
yes. Yeah, it was really special. And it's funny too, because I didn't get into it here in California. I got into it. I was attuned by uh, a 50 something farmer's wife in rural Wisconsin on the
Mm.
farm. And so it was me and a bunch of 50 and 60-year-old women um, just attuning to Reiki, and it was a whole day thing. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, and I just really feeling the energy so palpably and having people talk about it as a reality and being among other people feeling it was just really, like the word you say, galvanized my like visceral belief in an embodiment of, you know, spirit or something beyond what you see.
Mm. Yeah, especially that somatic experience there, not only for yourself, but with other people.
Yeah, like I'm feeling it in my hands, in my body, and other people are feeling it at the same
Hmm.
time, and we're feeling it together. I mean, in some way, that is like, science tries to say, can we see it? Can we all mutually see, feel, whatever? And like, even though energy is kind of can be seen as woo woo or whatever, not physical, it's actually very physical. You can feel it palpably physically. It's just you don't see it. Or maybe some people do, but generally.
Yeah, no, totally. That's great. Um, I love these having these like magical spiritual experiences with groups of people that you don't anticipate to be similar to you.
Yes. Yeah,
Also, like I love that piece of the story where it's just like, oh, you're with like people not of your age group,
right. Yeah.
um, doing something not in California that might seem like a very woo California thing to do back at that time, you know?
Yeah. 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 And at that time, I was like cutting my own hair into a faux hawk and, going to bars in Milwaukee. And I was just about to take off to Europe to study abroad for half a year. It was like, but but I don't know. I think my mom connected me with them because I grew up in the country. So, but yeah. So, but that's
Mm,
the thing. If you're open to things outside of what you expect, yeah, you're probably more likely to connect with spirit.
yeah. The curiosity is
Yeah.
there. Hmm.
Yeah. And the novelty, it's like not everything has to fit into my idea of what's cool or what's right, or, it's like, how about the one thing I know is I don't know everything. And
Hmm.
And so I want to be open and curious to what I can learn and find out. And yeah, that day I had a very special experience with a lot of people I never would have otherwise met or
Mhm.
known I could have such a good experience with.
So that's so great. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like it reminds me of situations I put myself in the past, and it's encouraging me in this moment to, yeah, think beyond the bounds of what I know is my community too. And
Yes.
I think it's like kind of an important thing for us to do right now is put ourselves in situations where we're surrounded by people we don't know and might
Yes.
believe and behave differently than we do. But
Yeah. But there can be a lot more in common than you realize.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and if we're all willing to really look at that and try and nurture, where we can get on the same page, then we can grow something because we're never going to be completely on the same page. You know.
Hmm.
So
Right.
how can we, work with what we've got and discover that maybe we have a lot more shared between us than we realize.
Yes. I love that.
Hmm.
And so you were having a spiritual trip. So it be said.
Yes.
And you're doing the seeking work. Was there ever a time that you connected with the path of witchcraft, or, does that word feel
Yeah.
like it applies to who you are? Does it feel like an
Yes.
applicable role?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. I never like embraced it like explicitly as like an outward identity per se. But actually, at that same time, when I was first attuned to Reiki, I got a book on Reiki written by Diane Stein, a Wiccan witch, and that was like that was as important to me as the attunement itself, and that kind of carried me beyond the attunement and really helped me just further delve into living in this connection to energy and spirit. And yes, so I mean, it's
Mm,
funny because at that time I wouldn't have said I'm a witch, but it was a literal Wiccan witch whose book was acting as my major, you know, signpost, in in
yeah.
in pursuing what I felt as deeply as I could feel was a calling of mine, which was to connect with this healing energy. So yeah, so
That's so
that was
cool.
yeah, so like that was there inside, but I wasn't. I wouldn't say hi. Yeah, I wasn't a practicing Wiccan witch by any means, but that she brought that to me through her lens, it was very indelible. And yeah, so then it just grew from there, going
Mm.
through all the Reiki attunements and then eventually craniosacral. And um, but I guess I should just to back up real quick. I definitely started an altar, keeping an altar around that time. Even when I would be very nomadic, I would have an altar wherever I went, set up little objects and things. So yeah, I kind of acted like these sort of witchy things, but I wouldn't have identified as it per se until much,
Yes.
yeah, until much later, until it became more of a thing, and
Hmm.
people were saying, "This is what I am. This is what I do." And after a while, I was like, "Oh, well, I do all those things too," you know. And I was like, "I
Totally.
guess, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, yeah, no.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah,
Um, just based on conversations I've had with fellow witches, it's like you are believing certain things and enacting certain things intuitively.
yes,
And then all of a sudden you come across some sense of like validation of what it is.
right.
And it doesn't mean there is some static thing that witchcraft is. It just means that there's this, I don't know, I'm seeing it as an umbrella, maybe because it's raining right now. Um, but there's this umbrella place where we can all gather and like speak to each other and be on the same page about what it is we're doing.
Yes, and in a time and place where it's becoming more important to value nature. I mean, it's
Mm,
always been important, but it's kind of becoming more pressing.
hmm
And I think that was another big, my connection to spirit was nature a lot, sort of nature and healing energy. And, as I learned more about pagan, ancient pagan, you know, ways being revolving around earth and its natural cycles and animals and all these things, it's just like, yeah, it's just deep in us.
right.
And you find it all around the world. Everyone's got their version of it, and I just think it's great to have a way for us in the modern Western world to say, hey, this is the thing. I'm not just weird, I'm not just interested in woo woo things or improbable, impractical things, or nature doesn't have a place in reality, or I mean, at this point, nature's might get some legal rights.
We hope. Yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, yeah, I just think it's great that it's there. And honestly, when the Witches Confluence came up, it was almost like my official outing, because I was like, wow, okay, this is what people are into it, and I'm like, great,
Yeah.
great, because you can kind of feel like you're a bit more obscure,
hmm
you know.
Totally. Yeah, I think that there's a way in which when we connect with a community that acknowledges,
Mhm.
the inherent powers and spirituality of nature and magic as an element that exists in the world,
Yes.
we're affirming that we are not alone as well. Because I
Hmm.
think sometimes, I don't know,
Yeah.
I know it did for me, like being a witch can feel kind of solitary or isolating.
Yeah.
It's like other or like a marginalized spiritual practice.
Yes.
But when we can come together in community and find the people who believe in the same things and speak our language, so to speak,
Yeah.
there's real power in that too.
There
So,
is. Yes, and it's emboldening, it
hmm
affects you in a deeper level where you may be a bit more willing to go deeper or express yourself a little more around it, and now you can meet other people, and we all know that, that's the quickening, or the synergizing, where you get a sum greater than I tried this one the last time we talked.
yeah. And now I'm going to get it wrong again. It just
Yeah,
took me right back there.
yeah, we're right back there. But I think everyone knows what we're getting at already.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. It does do that, and it's important because then you're like, okay, you just feel more validated, and like you can trust. It helps you trust your intuition more because your intuition actually led you to something that is validating what it's telling you, and that
hmm
other people's intuition led them to this a similar thing.
Right. I
you
love
know
that.
yeah, and I'll say, it's a wonderful experience. When I'm doing my nomadic tea lounge, it's pretty much an amazing experience every time, one way or another. But the thing that I love about doing it at the Witches Confluence is, more often than not, people are coming to it already valuing it.
Mm,
already having an awareness of it, appreciation for it, and value for it. And they come with this great, warm reflection, and that feels great, not just because I'm a Leo rising and a Cancer sun and moon, but it feels great to have whatever you're putting out there be really seen and valued and
mm,
reflected that way.
totally.
And
Yes.
yeah, so but then at the same time, I love bringing it to tech conferences and having people walk up to it completely wide-eyed, having zero frame of reference, and getting to introduce them to something new and different.
Right.
And that kind of comes back to what we were talking about, people having curiosity about what's unfamiliar,
Hmm.
maybe out of their usual realm of what they would value, but being pleasantly surprised.
Totally.
So that has its own gratification.
Yeah, I'm curious as you're speaking, there's this obvious through line for me around community and the work you do.
Mm.
Um, and was that always something that like felt really core to you as you were building your business? Or is it something that kind of like naturally blossomed in your
Like
work?
the community engagement aspect.
Yeah, like doing the tea lounge and
Yes,
yeah,
it was always a thing for me. Even I first I always drank tea, and I grew up with my grandmother, throwing different bags of herbal tea together to make her own blend, and
I love that.
yeah, that she got from like the one tiny health food store that existed in rural Wisconsin. So like I already had that, but
Mhm.
then a friend of mine, Oshan, um, opened a little underground tea house in the Mission District in 2008, I want to say, and I was on the team that helped open it up and run it, and that really opened me to the deeper, wider world of tea. Um, but that really engaged me with, oh, this is how I can really connect with my community, because I've always
Mm,
been very social oriented, but I said this is a way that I can connect with my community, but we aren't just like poisoning ourselves with alcohol. And
yeah.
you know
Yeah,
which
that
I drink
alternative.
yeah, I drink
Yeah.
alcohol once in a while, I'm not saying it,
Yeah,
but
totally.
like that doesn't have to be the only way. And even if you are, you can still have a tea lounge and drink tea and like balance it. But yeah, so anyway, so when I started there, I said, oh, because I was doing body work at the time, and I loved body work, but it was more one-to-one thing. And so
Hmm.
the moment I was introduced to the tea ceremony, tea lounge experience, I actually organized a volunteer run donation based, what I called a healing arts salon in the Mission. And so I just invited a bunch of local practitioners to come, and some people from Om Shanti brought some tea stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so I was like, cool. So now we can do, you know, alternative complementary medicine together. And the tea lounge was like the hub, or like the space that or the glue that could bring us, we could all gather around it, like the hearth.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, the hearth energy is strong.
yes, exactly, the hearth. And I mean, even like the fire. I mean, lots of times basically we're using electric water boilers, but it's
Hmm.
fire,
Yeah,
and
it's warmth, heat.
it is. And the steam rising, from the boiled water, from the teapot, it creates a real vibe in the space.
Mm.
And I've had a lot of people say when they're at an event where I'm doing the tea lounge is always packed with people, right? But there's always more people than that are there than can actually sit down. And I've heard a lot of times from people who they never even actually came to sit down, but they come to me later and they say, I never made it to actually sit down at the lounge, but I was so loving it being there. I
Oh,
love,
that's so sweet.
yeah, they're like, I love just looking over and seeing you pouring and the steam rising and the people gathered around it. And it just creates this, yeah, sense of a hearth, a warm hearth that we can all be around and feel closer from. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. It's like the Cancer sun and moon is like wants to nurture the family and the community, and
Hmm.
but then little Leo rising, it's like, and I'm at the center and you can all give me attention.
Yes, yes. You get to perform as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I do, and it's fun because I like to splash around uh,
Yeah.
and just kind of you know gab and all that. But and
What?
it is, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I wanted to say, like, I think it's so important for us all. I'm sure a lot of people listening are spiritual people who like run their own businesses and whatever, you know, they've got their own career set up, but it's so important to like honor your elemental makeup, right? And
Yeah,
whatever that looks like for you, whatever system you use, but uplift the things that want to be uplifted within you. Like feed
yeah.
your soul through the work you're doing. I feel like that's really what we should all like strive to do, you know?
Oh God, absolutely, absolutely. If you can make a living doing what you would want to be doing anyway,
Yeah,
that's
do that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And it's, and I didn't start that way. I mean, that was the thing. I After being exposed to tea ceremony, then I started bringing it to my friends' raves, and
Cool.
I just did it for free, for fun, for our friend community for years. And then that was later. I just said, well, I want to keep doing this, but in this world, like I can't keep doing stuff for free. Like I have to live.
Totally. Yeah.
So that
Uh,
kind of how that went.
It's an important moment, I think, with for a lot of people who are doing what they love. It's like, oh, I'm providing value for people, and in this world, value is monetized in XYZ way. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, to be able to like accept that and embody it is important, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is, and that's something I'm still working on. You know.
I hear ya. I hear ya.
Yeah.
But I love this invocation of the hearth
Yes.
since we are sort of tuning in together during winter. And I'd love to bring in your tea into this conversation, invite in some of the herbs in the blend,
I
and yeah, what you're drinking this season.
Excellent. Love it. So right now I've got a little tea ceremony set up. Even if you can't see it, I can tell you about it. I'm drinking my Deep Wellness blend. This is a big one for pretty much any transition of season, because any transition of season is kind of an extra opportunity to catch a little something. Um, and this is filled with herbs that strengthen the immune system, ultra antiviral. I made it in response to the pandemic. So I just said, okay, I just researched, okay, what are some of the strongest antiviral herbs and immune boosting herbs I can put together and make it taste good.
Yes, key.
That's key. That's very key. And my all my herbal blends, the flavor profile is on equal priority level as health,
Mm,
because Mother Nature provides that. She provides us with a palette that it's all there. All the flavors you need are there. So you can make it as healthy as you want, and it can still be as delicious as you want it. So anyway, this blend that I'm drinking right now, Deep Wellness, it's got 5 adaptogenic herbs and 2 adaptogen companion herbs. I know adaptogens a pretty popular term these days, but just quickly for anyone that's not familiar, they're herbs that um, promote homeostasis in the body primarily by regulating um, the adrenals, stress hormones, um, and so that's pretty relevant to our
Hmm.
world. But then the adaptogen companion herbs, they're not considered adaptogens themselves, but when combined, it just enhances the health benefits. So the adaptogens are licorice. There's a lot of licorice in this, which happens to be, and they're all ultra antiviral herbs. Licorice, tulsi, which I get this tulsi from a small farm up in Oregon and Pacific Botanicals
Mm.
farm, and it's just the best Rama Tulsi I've ever had. It's so sweet and creamy and just. Mm. And
I've heard of that farm.
oh
They're
yeah,
doing, yeah, I've heard
yeah,
really good things about them.
they are just they're a beacon of light. They're regenerative organic farm.
Mm,
They grow all kinds of beautiful herbs. And I source all the herbs that I can from them that they grow that I use. And but then they
nice.
also distribute and are really good, solid, dependable distributors like Mountain Rose and some of those others. Um, but yeah, so licorice, tulsi, astragalus, um, eleuthero, um, lemon balm and ginger. Those are the two adaptogen companion herbs. And then finally, chaga mushroom, which I get from sustainably harvested source. Very important anytime you're having chaga mushrooms that it's coming from a sustainable harvest because there are
Mm,
people that are just taking everything, just pillaging and plundering, and then it
yeah.
won't keep growing, and then we're SOL.
Yeah, totally.
So, but yeah, so I'm drinking Deep Wellness, and I've got my little candle here with a pomegranate and um, a couple little uh, bare branches. um, it's influenced by the Japanese tea ceremony, where there's generally a flower arrangement of some sort that is reflective of the season. And so I actually love the bare branch time of season. Maybe it's my Wisconsin upbringing, but
Mm,
it is like coming back to the hearth. It is the time when I get to crawl into my Cancerian shell and cozy up to the fire and drink hot tea and read books and you know be with your loved ones and um, yeah, that sort of thing.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's you know, I'm forgetting what herbalist I heard say this, but sometimes in the rat race we can just be like running around and we forget to take our herbs and whether
Yeah,
it's a tincture or whatever, we forget to like nurture ourselves in the ways that we should be nurtured.
yes,
Um, but the simple act of like brewing a cup of tea and like sitting with the tea and
yes.
having the tea experience is so powerful.
It really is. And you can do it for, like what I got here when I say all the details, it may sound, elaborate. It took me about 3 minutes to set up,
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's like you don't, that is another thing that I want to try and demystify among Westerners is to have a moment, to have a tea ceremony. People say, what's tea ceremony? And I'm like, well, it can look as many different ways as there are people and moments in the world. But it doesn't have to be something that's so elaborate and time consuming that you just skip it.
Right.
It can take 15 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, go sit in your favorite spot, you know, grab your favorite scarf or shawl and wrap it around you, you know. And it's really just about just be there with the process, you know, sit and watch the water boil, watch the steam rise, um, watch it steep, you know, bringing in all the senses. You're looking at the herbs, you're looking at the, as they infuse into the hot water, the gradual changing of the color. You're smelling the herbs, you know, you're hearing the bubbles from the boiling water, or you're hearing this sound, which is if you get a nice little high pour, you get that bubbling sound of the pour. Uh,
Mm.
and that actually helps with the flavor, because when water boils, the bubbles release oxygen, and oxygen has a nice sweet flavor, actually. So if you do a nice high pour, the bubbles that are created from that high pour reoxygenate and kind of bring the flavors together, similar to the way that salt brings flavors together in food.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, so you know, just it can be as simple as you want or as elaborate as you want. It can be as quick as you want or as long as you want. You can do it alone. You can do it with one other, multiple others. Um, there's no end. And so there's a lot to explore with it, you know?
Mm. And that's, I mean, I feel like I've said something like that about just like witchcraft or magic, you know, I think there's something like innately creative to the process that you're talking about, which is, um, yeah, sacred and personal and there for
Yeah.
us to explore. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that can include, you know, going down the path of very codified, specific, lineaged tea ceremonies, for example, or which particular, you know, witchcraft, you know, like Wiccan or what, you know, whatever it may be. It's great to expose yourself to um, long term developed ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I,
Agreed.
I just also like to say that, but that's not the only way to do it, you know. So if you're not ready to go and, you know, go to school to learn the exact current iteration of Japanese tea ceremony, which is beautiful and elaborate and specific, but also not everyone is going to make that a major part of their life. But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy tea ceremony of some kind,
Totally.
because we got all kinds of ways, you know. Then you go over to Morocco and they're doing it a completely different way.
Mm.
So, you know, or in the Middle East, you know, they've got their way. You know, the Berbers have their way. And so that's just where it's kind of cool as you widen your scope. You kind of see like, oh, okay, humans just do they do it in all their different ways, and it's beautiful to see all the different expressions. But then it's like it kind of helps you get to the essence of it. It's like, okay, well, what is it? What are we all getting to? Whether the teapot looks like this or that, you know, whether the
Mm-hmm.
thing or the rugs look like this or that. Ultimately, yeah, like you said, you're just coming to be present with making and drinking your tea and
Mm.
the space of where you are,
Yeah.
you know. And I mean, I was doing it at raves in like abandoned warehouses.
Yeah. What was that like?
You know, that was awesome. It was amazing. I mean, here we are having and that was some of the deepest, most fulfilling spiritual experiences I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
I love that. That's so
provide,
cool.
yeah, providing a cozy sanctuary in the
Hmm.
midst of a loud, raucous,
Yeah.
like drug saturated space.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of what I love is to reach over what do you call it, to bridge a gap.
Hmm.
And I loved getting like the person who is totally deep into their trip of whatever designer cocktail they were on, and having them come and see the tea lounge and like practically cry with gratitude because they're so
Yeah.
ready to get some relief, and they come
Totally.
and you know they're kind of wobbly at first, but then you start feeding them tea and you just watch them gradually like sit up, and their eyes kind of start to clear a little, and then you know before they know it they're ready to go back out on the dance floor. So
That's great.
yeah, you know, and doing that whether it's an abandoned warehouse in West Oakland or a the middle of a forest in Washington, you know, again, it's just like how diverse of an experience can we have? That's how I like to do it anyway, you know. And then taking it to the corporate office or the Oakland Museum, you know, or the wedding in Sedona or at
Hmm.
Coast Ranch, you know. So yeah, it's just that's the thing that I just try and say. There's no reason to say I can't do it or it's not my thing. Because it's like, no, it can be exactly your thing. It's just up to you to discover how you like it.
Hmm. And
And
being open to the experience.
exactly. And then once you discover, oh, I like it this way, being open to, oh, I might even like it another way too.
Yes. Flexibility.
Yeah.
Well, I know you, and I know that you do a lot of different things. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, what is like a ritual or embodied action that you find yourself returning to, let's say in the winter time, that you, outside of tea, perhaps, but
Yes.
maybe related to tea adjacent?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Tea is a big one, but I do also um do physical practice. So I've done a bunch of Qigong in the past, and I'm still connected to the Xingyi five fists martial art form, not for combat, for health and wholeness. Um, and in the winter, that I do that practice year round, but in the winter in particular, it's all the more important to me because it keeps me in my body, keeps me active, but not just active like oh I want to like be fit or whatever. It keeps me in my body in a way that helps me keep my senses alive and keep my presence of mind located here in my body where it needs to be.
Mm.
Um, and so, yes, I do sort of a combination of Shingi Negong, along with I've been getting into a bunch of Pilates exercises, which actually a lot of them are very similar to some of the Fuhu Gong exercises that I've done.
Well,
So yeah, I mean, in terms of that, like the physical practice is so important because I love sitting around and being cozy with tea, but you got to get in your body and use it, you know. And I love giving body work, um, but all my body work clients, I'm always giving them exercises to do. And even if they don't think of it as a ritual, it is a ritual, you know? And it's a ritual based on self-care. Um, and that self-care puts you in a better place to, contribute to the world around you in a good way.
Mm,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, so I would say, whatever physical practice, people connect with, that I find that to be a real pillar for everyone.
Yeah, and I think especially in winter when we do feel like
Hmm.
seasonal depression sets in, like
Yeah,
we do get in our cozy caves and want to hibernate. It's like so important to remember to like move the chi around in your body.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, it's always comes back to balance, right? As much as I love to embrace, yeah, the cozy cave part of it, yeah, it's important to stay in your body, stay active. Um, but yeah, not just like for fitness workout. That's just kind of like a collateral benefit,
Hmm.
or at least that's just part of what keeps you feeling good. Because it's really the mind body connection. Because I mean, you can be working out in a way that's not great, that's not healthy,
Hmm.
it's not benefiting you. I remember I had a client back in the day who he said that his brother would laugh at him when he would be doing yoga in front of him because he called it his stress yoga workout. Because he's doing it. He's got to get in the right pose and
Get the stress out with
yeah,
his
yeah,
yoga.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like tensing himself up and like stressing himself out trying to do yoga right.
Mm,
So again, it's sort of like a similar principle to the tea ceremony. Whatever you're doing, whatever you connect with best, just trying to do it in a really present, mindful way,
yeah.
and with the intention of connecting with yourself, your body, your spirit, and saying, I'm doing this, for my well being on all levels. And that's helping put me in a better place to benefit the world around me. That's kind of like the approach that I've kind of found myself taking because again, I like to explore and try a lot of different kinds. Um, and so I'm like, yeah, I've tried this kung fu and that tai chi and this yoga and that Pilates and all these different ways. And ultimately it's just are you doing it with presence of mind and healing intention?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I love that reminder for everyone. I
yes.
think we get so caught up in like what something is doing for us, you know? Like,
Hmm.
what is this going to provide for me? Or
Hmm.
what will I produce if I do XYZ?
Yeah, what's the result? How
Yeah,
will
what's the
it,
result?
yeah, how will it, benefit me around this idea or concept?
Right.
You know, I mean, you can even lift weights in an intentional healing way.
Yeah.
I one thing with I have this trick shoulder, and for years I was doing stretches and getting body work, but I wasn't making a real breakthrough until I started doing um, physical therapy, and they started giving really specific targeted strengthening exercises.
Mm,
And that came at a time when I started really valuing myself more and believing in myself more and growing my businesses more.
that's so cool.
Yeah. And so it came with this realization like, oh, I need to nourish myself through strengthening these very specific parts that have been compromised by a chronic challenge. So by that same token, I was like, oh, and I've had a chronic challenge of feeling like I'm valuable enough. And so
Hmm.
so it's actually healing and nourishing for me to strengthen my sense of self-worth and value. And so there I was doing bands and weights, and it just shifted my whole world.
Totally. Yeah, it
So
makes me think of the mind, body, spirit 3 card tarot or oracle card
yeah,
spread,
yes,
where it's like you might not be having a physical ailment, but potentially whatever it is that you're doing with your body or however you're relating to your body actually can like speak directly to whatever it is that you are navigating as a challenge in your
yeah,
mind or in your spiritual space. So it's all
absolutely,
connected, you know? It's all
absolutely, and
connected.
absolute 100%. And that's what I see every time I've got someone on the table giving them body work.
Mm.
And what's amazing is you can access it from any point. Really, you want to from every point. That's why you want that trinity, if we call it a mind, body, spirit. Is that
Mm.
what?
Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
said.
yeah. So, because some people that they really connect, they get on the table and they just really connect with getting the strong massage, and they may even want to talk about, kind of whatever
Hmm.
going on in the world, but by connecting with their body with the intention, I can actually bring, not me, but things can be brought up
Right.
just through that body connection that they needed. And they will have an emotion arise or a thought arise that kind of shifts their perspective. Then, on the other hand, there may be someone coming in and they want to talk all about this psycho spiritual part of the energy work, and they're really
Hmm.
into all that. Um, but I actually may want to end up giving them some deeper tissue stuff to get them in their body, you know?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just it can go all kinds of ways. And
Absolutely.
and so that's why it's kind of great again to just kind of remain open to say, oh, I may think if I want to solve this, psycho spiritual thing, that I need to do a psycho spiritual thing to heal it. It may not be the case, or it may only be part of what you need to do. And then you
Yes.
also need to do something unexpected, like lift weights or whatever it may,
Yeah, totally.
or like go and smash, old
China.
ceramic ware. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that option
yeah.
personally.
Oh, me too.
um well, this has been such like a beautiful winding conversation, and I
Yeah.
love that you do so many different things in your work, and they all really reflect this sort of like attunement to the ecosystem. Um,
Yes,
so
yes. Well, and that is one other thing I did want to just mention is that
yeah.
with part of, it's one thing to pay lip service, but it's another thing to actually practice, in my business with the sourcing of all my teas and herbs, you know, only only sourcing, certified organic, um, and through either direct farm or distributors who have the elaborate, paper trail. Um, it's so important because when it comes to agriculture, this is a world around the world, and there's this idea that industrial agriculture will feed the world, and that sort of thing, but it actually doesn't have to be that way. If we just had small organic farms all over the world,
Hmm.
there is enough for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about some of these herbal distributors is, I'm not big enough to buy the volume necessary to from any given small farm, but the distributor is. And they can
Yes.
do that to a lot of small farms. So that creates these small farms have a steady, buyer,
Hmm.
and they can stay small.
Yeah, I love that.
And then
It's
I can buy a small farm's, dried herb, but just at the quantity that I live at.
yeah.
So, and like the teas, my teas from China, I have a contact on the ground, embedded with the farmers there. And, you know, but he's got a whole bunch of them all around China, that he works with. And so it's so great because they get to do what they've been doing, on that small human level for literally thousands of years, but it works with the current global market.
Mm.
So I guess I just like want to say that too, like that, we can talk about what we do in our little worlds and ideas and concepts. But then at some point, like again, sort of like we were coming back to the witches' confluence, like seeing a bigger picture and a bigger, community, even industries
Yeah.
that are actually beginning to work on a more harmonious level with the ecosystem. I think it's really important for people to look at that, see that more and more, to believe it more and more, so we can visualize it more and more, so we can make it really, really happen.
Yeah. Enact it and support it as we see
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I think
yeah,
that's very much Pluto and Aquarius work ahead
yeah,
of us.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. And just as I speak that way, one a source of really great news that I get a lot, that kind of gives me a little jolt of confidence in the world now and then, is the Bioneers. Have you heard of the Bioneers?
Yes.
Yes, and I in all honesty, I don't follow them super closely all the time, but every once in a while I'll just check in, and I can always find just some awesome story on some awesome person or industry that is, innovating the way things are done to make it more sustainable, whether that's environmentally or socially. And
Yeah.
especially these days, I mean, pretty much when like some of the most uplifting media I can get is like the Daily Show, just telling devastating jokes about the devastating like
Right.
fears of
Right.
the, I love the Daily Show, but I'm just saying, like, it's important that we see the practice happening so we can believe in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that suggestion.
Mm.
It is so important to be able to like acknowledge that people are actually doing amazing things in the world, even when there's so much turmoil out there.
Yeah, they are, and answers are there, and they're just we have to actively seek them because they are there.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be readily available. We really have to work to find it. And the witches confluence is just another example similar to the Pioneers, where here is a place, or an entity that you can look to and turn to and find inspiration, encouragement, guidance, connection,
Wow.
networking, all of it,
Yeah.
you know
I love that. Thank you for that.
yeah,
I
you.
aspire to like continue weaving those webs because it does take a village, as
It
you
does.
know.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Absolutely.
And we are so grateful to have you in our community and be connected in this way.
Yeah.
Um, I
You.
gotta say, for our listeners, please go out and try NIUKA tea. It is truly delicious. As
Too.
Alex said, they do, make sure the taste is on point as well
Yeah.
as like the potency of
Oh
the
yeah.
product.
Yes.
Um, so please go check it out. Um, and it was so great to be able to have this conversation and share it with our audience. Thank you, Alex.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Casey. This has been lovely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Modern Witches podcast. We hope you've been inspired to cultivate your own magic and to craft your own spiritual practices. Let us know what sparked your curiosity by leaving us a comment on this episode or leave us a review. And don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode. Your feedback and engagement truly fills our cups. If you're looking for more ways to gather with your fellow witches, please support our work on Patreon. Learn more at modernwitches.org. Blessed be.